I let go so much more than what I did in my first entrepreneur. Yet the company has grown so much more, and the impact we're making is unbelievable. And I think a big part of it, strategy helps, and got lucky in a sense with timing, but a lot of it had to do with letting go, how we can support them and let them do their thing. So a different version of founders.
Let me invite you to sit back, drop your jaw, tongue, and shoulders, take a deep breath, and if you wish, close your eyes for a moment and feel the beat within. In a few seconds, you just jumped from your head to your heart and felt the beat within, opening up to receive even more value and fulfillment out of your business and life. And today's episode. I'm your host, Nico van der Venne, confidant to successful CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs who are striving to achieve everlasting fulfillment. Welcome to the Everlasting Fulfillment Podcast with our next guest, Rob Levin. Welcome to the show, Rob. I am so excited to talk to you. You've got a very good company title. Let's talk about that. I think that's interesting. Tell us who you are, but tell us about your company.
Rob Levin, the co-founder and chairman of Work Better on a company with my co-founder, who's Cohen, who I've known since college. We started the company in 2018. What we do is provide incredible remote talent in Latin America for US-based small and mid-sized businesses. I've spent almost my 30 plus years either working in and or serving small and space that I love and understand. I'm here in New York, partners in LA, a few other people in the States, and then the rest of our team is Black.
Okay. That's interesting. Is that an easy way of working between those different timelines and across the country?
I don't know if it's easy or hard. It's not necessarily harder for us. We've been doing this since day one. And time zones are actually not a big deal because we're all within 2, maybe 3 time zones. The world is getting smaller. And that's partly why we started the company. In the US here, there's a talent crisis. There's just not enough great talent. When a small business, every seat, not only us, but our 240 or so clients leveraging talent in Latin America, and it's going great.
Well, that's interesting. So if you're saying Latin America, what kind of countries are we talking about? Is that Brazil, Mexico?
Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, Colombia, El Salvador, even Jamaica. For us here in the States, it's really anybody south of us.
Okay.
Central, south.
So how does something like this happen? Because if you're saying that you need to find people over there to come to the US to actually...
They're working. I didn't explain that part. My mistake. They work remotely from their homes.
Oh, okay. So they're actually all virtual.
All virtual.
Cool. And what kind of jobs, kind of roles are we talking about here?
Yeah. So when we started, we actually started with just one role, was executive assistant. Our belief was and still is that every business owner should have an assistant. Happy to talk more about that later. And actually so we then, after a couple of years and some of our clients were hiring several people, and I knew with these clients, I would call them up and say, hey, I know business is good. How many assistants do you really need? And they said, no, Rob, you don't understand. I hired an assistant, but it turned out that person's great in marketing. So put them in marketing. We hired somebody else from you, trained them. Turned out that person was great at customer service. So anyway, then we pivoted a little bit. Now we provide over 40 roles. And what I love about what we're doing is it comes down to our mission. Our mission is to help outstanding talent and outstanding companies fulfill their dream. And what we love to hear when we have our weekly meeting is client stories and the stories from what we call our remote professionals. 400 plus people that are working for our clients. From the remote professionals, we're hearing things like, I'm finally doing meaningful work. I'm making more money, a lot more money than I used to. And I was able to buy a car for my parents. And then from the company, those are just, companies. And I know a lot of these business owners, many of them are friends of mine. It's, hey, I got the talent I need and these people are amazing. These people are among my best performers. It's just, what more can you ask for when we actually have, in a sense, two sets of customers, our talent, our workforce, and our clients. And we hear that we're impacting their lives. It just doesn't get any better.
But it's very nice to hear because there's a lot of different stories going on in the world that are completely different than what you're saying right now. So you were saying earlier that your company was basically started because of the idea of finding an assistant for an executive. That's what I understand.
For business owners, but it certainly can include
business owners.
Our world is small and mid-sized business. Don't work with large businesses. Of course, you can have executives in small and mid-sized businesses too. And it's just that it's that belief that every business owner and senior executives too should have an assistant.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I have my own virtual assistant who's not that virtual because she's actually sitting in the same office. My partner is also working remotely as assistant for several. She's virtual executive assistant in any case. She's not only doing administrative support, but she's also doing other things. And why I asked the question is because I've been in business since 2016. I've been in business, which was more like a side hustle in the beginning. And in 2019, I really launched my company. And it took me over 2 years to realize that I need an executive assistant because I was doing everything myself. Now, the extra layer there was that I learned that I need a team of executive assistants who are experts, each in their own part of business. So if you're talking about these roles, are you leading them as well? Are you supporting them in a leadership role, or are they really individual and contributing?
I'm not sure I'm following the question. Are you asking what our role is after we connect them?
Personally, for instance, yeah.
Me personally, my role in the company, I don't know if you're familiar with EOS, the entrepreneurial operating.
Oh, no.
Really like a framework for running a business. And
I think I've heard of it. Yes.
Using that now for 2 years. And among the things that the EOS framework calls for is company, you need a visionary and you need an integrator. I'm the visionary of the company. I'm the one who's looking forward, thinking about the new products, thinking where the market's going. I'm actually working on a book right now about talent in small business. That's my role. Yes, I get involved in other things, of course. Partner is the CEO and the integrator, and he's really the one responsible for making everything happen. All right. Rob said that these are the types of customers we need to be focusing on. I'm just using an example. Now he makes sure we're doing it. I talked since day one about creating wow experiences for our talent, for our clients. And again, he leads really the entire company to do that. As far as our role, Work Better Now, our role is, there's multi steps here. Number one, we have a great employer brand, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we're recruiting, it varies month to month, but we're recruiting from about 15, 16. And we have a great reputation. And it starts there because that helps us attract great talent. Then our recruiting department screens 4,000 to 5,000 applicants. That recruiting department screens that down to about 1% to 2% that we feel are now proved, or that we're going to be rolling out a new term soon called certified remote professionals. They're proved to interview with our clients. And then we tailor match several candidates, usually 3 candidates, each role that our clients are trying to fill. And then our client or prospective client hires at least once. And then they incorporate that individual as any other member of their team. They're going to be working remotely. And instead of working remotely, if you're a company in New Jersey, they're in California, company in New Jersey, and they're somewhere in Colombia, right? And then what we are now rolling out very excited about this because this was an idea that I had 2 years ago and we're probably making it happen, is we're rolling out the WBN Academy. What is the Before I even tell you what it is, I want to set the stage. Business is changing at an ever increasing rate.
True.
Everything's changing. And the pandemic accelerated those already fast moving changes. So customer patients are changing. The way employees want to be led and managed, that's changing. Technology, of course, is leading a lot of this change. So on and so forth. And because of this, companies constantly need to acquire new capabilities. We don't always think about it that way. We need to acquire these. IT security is a big issue, right? And it's changing and evolving. You need to acquire those capabilities. Whether you have them in-house or you hire, in the States, we call an MSP, an IT company, doesn't matter, but you need those. Now we have something called AI, which is transforming. It is in the process of transforming business, maybe more than any other technology for it. Businesses are going to need to learn how to use AI, right? So they need to constantly acquire new.
No, it's fine. It's very interesting that you take that step because indeed it's something that's very prevalent, very applicable at this point in time. I'm experienced the same issue in an organization I work for right now, where it's very clear that the people who are learning, and for instance, in this case, it's AI and data management, and especially where let's say in the olden days we had KPIs, and KPIs were something you had to strive for, et cetera, et cetera. People did analysis on these KPIs, but they have come more or less to a point where they become alive. So you need to respond a lot more quicker, and you need to be able to adapt to those things. So one of the ways is really asking the question to an AI system and saying, okay, what do you see? Because sometimes you get blindsided by whatever's presented to you and you don't see what the background is. It's one of the things that I've been studying and been working on is with a founder syndrome, where a founder or a CEO, can be both of them, get supplied with KPIs or with Excel sheets that have more green and yellow than the actual real red that's behind them, where AI will be non-biased and actually blur it out and say, that sector you're doing really well, but you're going to have that issue in X amount of time. So I understand what you mean by creating an environment where you can learn and continuously learn. It's one of the reasons I stepped out of IT, to be honest. I worked in IT for 15 years, and it was at the end going so fast with I worked in the Microsoft Windows environments and so on, infrastructure. And the changes were switching so fast that I couldn't follow anymore. I was doing support, but I was always also doing sales. I was doing architecture. I was already short on the ball because of all the new, like you said, when you're an evangelist in your environment, there's a lot of stuff that you get to know a lot more quicker than finally the people that implement it. But it's a good thing to hear that you're taking that strategy. Now, coming back to founder syndrome, I don't know if you've heard the name founder syndrome. It's something that does resonate in the world these days. And if you've had any issues with that, because if you're a co-founder, you probably saw your company grow, but at some point you must have taken a couple of decisions that must have been a little bit harder than just say, okay, let's go with the flow here. Is there any situation in the past that you actually met like that?
When I hear the term founder syndrome, another thing comes to mind. So if you don't mind, I want to share this experience. I actually started my career as an accountant over 30 years ago. And I finally started my own company, first venture myself in 2000. And it was a media company. It was a magazine here in New York. It was very well known. We had a large readership, had national advertisers, which doesn't happen local or regional. But it wasn't very successful. It really wasn't. And I spent 10 prime years in that business. And I had probably a different version of it. Felt like I had to get involved in everything. And I'm not saying that's the reason we weren't successful. It certainly didn't help, right? Not to mention it took a huge toll on my health and my well-being. I just felt like I had to be involved in everything. And fast forward, I exited that business in late 2013, early 2014, right around actually when I got my first assistant. And then I started this business in 2018. And my partner and I, we started this totally different approach. Yes, when we started out, it was him and my assistant who was stepping in. She's now the general business, myself. And those two guys were really doing most of the work. But as we started to grow, as the business really started to have a show that we had a future, I got a lot more involved in the business. And it became very clear to, partner's name is Andrew, call him AC. Became very clear to AC and myself, what we need to do now is it's got to be much less about us. And we got to bring on the right people. We got to give them the resources, give them the support, give them the leadership. And one of the amazing things is I let go so much more than what I did with my first entrepreneur. Yet the company has grown so much more. We just got 114 out of 5,000 live. And the impact we're making is unbelievable. And I think a big part of it, strategy helps, and got lucky in a sense with timing, but a lot of it had to do with letting go in people, how we can support them and let them do their thing. So a different version of founder syndrome.
Yeah, it's a part of it. Absolutely. It hits a little bit in the direction of micromanagement, where you put finger in every little detail and messing with stuff that people are thinking about, but actually you think it should be different because it's your baby, which is logical. You don't want to let your baby be run by somebody else. But so what was the actual trigger point? I'm going to give you an example of what one of our previous guests actually explained. He had an emergency, so he had to fly out and leave his company behind for a couple of months because there was a family emergency in another country. And when he left, he said, I had somebody who could run the place, just keep it smoothly running and nothing special. When he came back, he actually sold the whole funnel out that he was struggling for, almost a year to get these customers in. So what was that point for you? Do you have any idea what triggered it?
It's a great question. The first thing that came to mind, by the way, I want to tell this story because I think entrepreneurs hopefully learn from it. So I mentioned I had a media company and we made our money based on selling advertising. And I hired salespeople maybe only a year or two after we started. So I had salespeople, but if it was an important pitch, I went on. I realized that because it was paid, because I had so much knowledge of the audience, the business owners in the New York area, I would talk my way out of sales. It took me a while to figure this out. Right? So I realized that, all right, I'm only going to go on the absolute biggest opportunities where something custom has to be created. But even when I go on those meetings, I'm not saying a word. I'm going to let the salesperson, even if he or she makes a mistake, say a word. It turned out that because I wasn't so close to it, because they weren't as close to it as I was, they were able to be much more effective salespeople. So that was maybe one of the first lessons that I learned. And by the way, and I consider myself excellent at sales. I wasn't when I started. I had to take sales training for years, but I'm really good at it now. But I know now when to step aside because I just too close to it. And I also remember because I had this magazine for business owners and we featured successful business owners. I got to know a lot of these people. My whole network, my whole world really are business owners today because of that experience. And a lot of them very successful. Some that you've heard of, you may have heard of, some that you've never heard of, so are really successful. And a lot of these people are my friends. I got to watch how they were run. And the more successful one, almost all of them, none of them were involved in the detail. And I took note of that. It maybe took a little while. I had to bang my head a few times, had lumps and bruises, but I took note of that. And yes, I will still jump in now. In fact, my team has said, Rob, when you see something that, because of your experience, you're able to recognize, let us know. Because at some point I was just like, hey guys, do what you want. Now they're actually encouraging me. Hey, when you see something, we want to learn from it. So jump in. But in general, I really just try to step back.
Oh, it's nice. It brings up a sentence that my coach told me. It's being committed but not attached. So it's really being there and understanding the situation, but just being the neutral person that you're really there for the company, but you're not trying to run it, the whole
You know,
story. And what you're saying is you actually, by taking the distance, you're probably, when you say something, it'll have a lot more impact than when you were always in the little details. Yeah.
it doesn't only apply to business, it applies to life as well, right?
True.
I have two kids, and I'm going to be in their ear all the time. They're not going to listen.
Yes.
They probably will still say I'm in their ear. And it's funny you're mentioning this. You're really getting me to think here. I started meditating maybe 2015, 2016. I mean, I always took decent care of myself, but even taking better care of myself. And I'm just less reactionary in general, certainly in business, but just throughout everything. Whereas I didn't take much to set me off or to get my blood pressure up. And maybe part of this is just getting a little older and wiser. I tried to step back from any situation instead of reacting.
Was it, did you have kids at the time before?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. And what actually was the difference for you personally when you saw how you acted with your kids before you realized these things and now?
It wasn't just my kids. It was my wife. It was a lot of different situations. It's really what I said. I'm a lot less reactionary. It doesn't mean I don't react or overreact a little too quickly these days. I do, but I do it a lot less. I heard a great expression from somebody. This was a guy who coaches professional athletes better, and he's not athletic. And he told me something that I'll never forget. He said he was working with a goalie, and his goal, the hockey goalie, was so that when the puck is coming, it's coming slowly to them and this big. And that it took a while for that to sink in, but I just love that. We were able to get so in the moment, but not reacting to, you're able to see you're able to see things much more clearly. And then because of that, whatever action you do end up taking, it's usually a better and smarter action. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does to me. I hope it does for the listeners as well, because it's something that I recognize myself very much. I have two boys, 14 and 12. And a couple of years ago, I was on their case the whole time. It was following up on details from school, following up on whoever their friends were, et cetera, because it came from a good place. You want to give them the good life, and you don't want them to experience the things that you didn't want to experience. But at some point, you switch over and become overprotective where they don't experience their own issues that they can get through. And I find the same thing that happens within the team that I work with, that sometimes you really see them running straight for that concrete wall and you're going to make a mistake. But it's that point in time where you as leader or manager or founder, shut up. Just don't say anything. You have to let them walk into that wall. And the lesson that they learn is 10 times more valuable. Might cost you a couple of bucks, of course, but it's something that sometimes in the long run is a gift, basically.
It should be the way that whether it's family or business, it's the way we should be operating. Again, as long as it's catastrophic.
Exactly. Yeah.
The only way you learn, the way you largely learn is by making mistakes.
It's true. You're largely, yeah. There's other ways as well, luckily. Otherwise, it would be difficult. You have to make every mistake that's possible to get something somewhere. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a beautiful idea what you're doing right now. So did you actually, it's not running right now yet, your academy, the learning.
We did a pilot earlier this year. We did some pivots and we're about to roll it out next month.
Okay. So this is a premiere we're getting from you that's out there. Okay. But it's probably launched by the time that this episode goes on to the air, but it's good to see that. And at this point, which stage of development is this? Are you actually already fully booked with a lot of content, or it's something that continuously evolves? Is it something that comes from your people themselves, or how do you handle that part?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. We find a balance. What I mean by that is we decided to rely on third party content because we're not going to be able to produce the content. That said, pick that third party provider very carefully. In fact, we switched providers from when we did the pilot to when we're to launch. And then we are, use the word curating courses. We're evaluating them and then creating the course tracks in the most sense we think makes for our profession. So we had to find that balance. Look, it would be great if all the content came from us. We're not geniuses at everything, right? So found a great third party provider. Plus you need the right technology so that it's easy to use the device. A lot to it that of course we have to roll it out to professionals. We got to talk to our clients about it. A lot of little steps. But, and really our job is to put it all together and make sure it's designed for the benefit for our professionals and then for.
Mm-hmm. So I was thinking about like platforms like LinkedIn Learning. Is that also a system that you say this is added value? Because I see a lot of stuff on there that's created by person XYZ. Some of them are renowned people. Otherwise, you see individuals creating something. How do you curate between what is good, what is less good, and let's say what can be moved aside on
So
your side?
the content has to be excellent. It has to be. In between that media company and this one, I also own a company that help large businesses market small business content. And I learned then that content, whether it's a blog that somebody's reading or it's a course, has to be excellent or you're going to check out. Just think back to your education, right? When there was a bad teacher, you were checked out, right? When there was a great teacher, you were golden. So that's what we have. That's part of our curation process. Is this just telling us what we already know or is the instructor non-engaging or is it pushing us? Part of the curation process. My team knows on the marketing side here, this going away from the academy for a second. When we're publishing content, that content's got to be great. It's got to be changing the point of view of the reader. Otherwise, I don't want to do it. And I had some discussions with some people who are no longer part of the company that they were like, we just need to get this out for SEO purposes. We're not going to do that. You want to work in SEO terms where they make sense? Great. Content's going to be.
I love hearing that because I read a lot, basically a lot of books, but I also read a lot of stuff online. And let's say the last couple of years, I think the recycling of the same content all over the place has become exponential, and finding things that are unique that really change your mind, it's difficult. Absolutely. And it's those things that are making the difference right now. I think you're probably going to jump out of a couple of screens instead of the mainstream same story that always comes up. It's wonderful to hear that. I've got one question for you that I think is pretty interesting to ask, because these last days, and I'm really talking about the last days, I've been having these questions from several founders and general directors and so on from companies. So they were asking, Nick, tell me, when is it enough? When is it enough people? When is it enough money? When is a company big enough? I wanted to ask you that same question. Do you have a point of view on that?
I know I haven't reached that point. And the reason I say that is, I went from years ago personally from chasing money, and there's nothing wrong with money, by the way, wrong with earning a lot of money, whatever. I went from chasing money to chasing our mission. And our mission is to help talent great. And, we feel we have so far to go. Just a quick little story. I hope this resonates. I got a call from a friend of mine. I used to do business with him. We used to be business partners in a small venture. And we've actually several ventures. And he said, I'm finally ready to get an assistant. And of course I'm calling you. And I said, I am so happy. And he goes, you have a lot of clients. Why are you so happy? I go, I'm happy because you're getting an assistant and it's going to change your life. And I can't wait to get that call from you 3 months when you say to me, Rob, I should have done this 10 years ago, right? That's what lights me up. We have a long way to go. We can impact a lot more people, um, impact a lot more companies. And that's kind of the way I think about it. Now, I also suppose that if it wasn't fun anymore, at least with this business, that might be a sign that it's fun. I think if you're working for yourself and it's not fun, that's really a shame, because that's one of the reasons you probably would work for yourself to begin with. But and I could speak for AC, my partner as well. We're very fortunate that we're having a ton of fun doing this. Doesn't mean that there's not plenty of, but we're having a ton of fun. So there's just we don't see the horizon ending, and we can make a much bigger impact.
It's a beautiful point of view right there when you're saying that, the mission is what drives you, and it's not all the rest, the accolades, the money, and so on. It is necessary. Money is good.
Nice.
It's perfectly okay to have a lot of money, because it makes you, or it gives you the opportunity to actually build what you're building and creating that mission. And one of my goals basically is striving to improve humanity one person at a time. And how I see that personally is by making sure that everybody that I work with can put a sandwich on the table for themselves and for their family. And that's what drives me. And that's why I do what I do. Is there anything that you want to bring out there? You want to say to the listeners, you want to leave behind right now?
I think I just want to double down. Well, for entrepreneurs in particular, this is fresh in my mind, writing a book on this is one of the topics. I can't tell you enough about how developing our mission and our core values has really helped shape our company. And I think has actually helped drive a lot of our growth. For example, our first core value was we're going to put our talent first, not our client. There's a whole long story behind that. And I actually think that has helped growth. And in our company, the values are practiced every day. When we have staff meetings, the values are coming up, right? Board people and recognize based on how they are living our core values. And if you would have said this to me 10 years ago, let alone 20 years ago, I'd be like, oh yeah, core values are important. Whatever. I got other things. I got to sell some. Mm-hmm. And yes, the best time to come up with your mission, your core values is when near the beginning of the company. But the second best time to do that is today. You don't have them, develop them, really put in the time to that, get your team involved in a mission that really transcends your product or service. It really talks about the ultimate benefit that it's bringing to the world. And then core values that, to me, core values are the guiding force when somebody has to make a decision. Nobody else is around. And those things have been really powerful for us. And I just hope that the other entrepreneurs that are listening, if you have all of that stuff locked down, that's great. Then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Don't really consider going back and maybe evolving your mission or values, really making them work for you.
It's a beautiful message. And I think indeed it's a good emphasis of what you're saying. A lot of companies have these hanging around all over the place, but nobody actually looks at them. I worked at IBM, for instance, and I know their core values were XYZ, but they would never mention them in a meeting where I now work now. In each meeting, I work in an environment where safety is the biggest thing that is needed. It's a nuclear power plant, so everybody wants that to be safe. So that each meeting, we actually see the core values on safety first, think about everything what you do, make it count, et cetera, et cetera. So it's something that really resonates with me as well, that basically you have to know clearly what everybody is working towards, put the nose in the same direction. So, Rob, I think you guys are doing amazing things. And I think there's a lot of people who could use your help, or help from your team, or from the people that you actually put out there. Where can they find you? Is there anything specific that you want to tell them? Is there any links or anything like that you want to mention that we can put in the show notes for them?
Yeah, thanks for asking. There's a lot of content, hopefully at workbetternow.com. There's blogs, great e-guides on if you're looking to go use offshore, nearshore, any system, et cetera. So workbetternow.com. And then you can easily find me on.
Cool. Thank you very much for taking the time to have this chat with us. I think there's a couple of people out there who might be thinking of contacting you guys. I do know I have an audience in the US, and I think it might be a good idea, like I experienced, get somebody to do stuff for you instead of doing everything yourself. That's where you start.
I don't want to, I know we're finishing up, but I want to throw another resource out. It's not mine. There's a great organization called, so huge fan. I'm also a client of Coach. And there's a great book that he wrote with a guy named Ben Hardy called Who Not How. And just the name alone should start to give you some ideas. It's a short read. Can't recommend it. Gets into something else called unique ability. 2 concepts every business owner should be. Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. Thank you very much for your time, Rob. And to the listeners, it was a wonderful conversation, and really take the idea with you of getting somebody to assist you in your company, because I have had that personal experience very clearly that my life as an entrepreneur has become a lot better, a lot more stable by getting somebody to do stuff that they are the experts in. And no, honestly, you don't know everything. And no, you don't have to do everything. Just get somebody to do it for you. And don't think about how much time it's going to take. It's going to give you so much more. And of course, remember to jump from your head to your heart and feel the beat within. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Everlasting Podcast. Let me leave you with a few questions to answer in the comments. How do you see the different topics we discussed during this interview? What are your thoughts? What stood out for you? Let us know in the comments, or just send us your feedback. We launch new episodes weekly. Don't miss any by ensuring you are subscribed to the show. Click the follow button now. We depend on the organic growth of the podcast to inspire more and more people. So by giving us a 5-star review and sharing this episode with at least one of your friends who might be interested in the subject, you will significantly help more people become inspired. But more than anything, I am grateful to you for taking the time to listen to the show. If you are also a successful CEO, founder, or entrepreneur who has inspiring words to say, feel free to contact us for an interview at contact@nicovandevenne.com. Thank you for listening. We will see you again soon with more inspirational conversations on achieving everlasting fulfillment.